Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Mike. Good to see you. Hi, Haley, and everybody else who knows me or doesn't know me. Hi, Yash. Twice in one day. I mean, twice in 1 week. We are honored.
Thanks, Claire. How's it, everyone?
And congratulations again on yesterday on your designation.
Thanks so much. That was quite a cool session.
It was. Next, I hope you are coming to the conference, aren't you, Yash?
I don't know yet. Let's see what the company says.
Okay, you're going to have to tell them that you're going to have to come because we want to do a big rah-rah at the conference as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we can make a plan.
Cindy, are there lots more people in the waiting room?
Not at the moment. I think you can get started, and whomever comes in, we'll let them in.
Sorry about the hardy-dar. I'm just going to quickly hijack the start of the session before we hand over to Kim and to Belinda. But I just wanted to say hi to everyone and welcome to the Young Professional and Student webinar this afternoon. It's looking like it's going to be a fabulous session, and I encourage you all to participate and ask lots of questions. But before we start, I just wanted to remind all of our students and young professionals, and actually anybody who is part of our SAPEX community, a reminder that last year at the Young Professional and Student Conference, we launched the SAPEX mentorship program officially, and on the website, and I've shared the link in the chat. So if you could just copy that to your notebook or have it later as a task, just have a look at the most amazing mentors that we have on our list, people who have committed to SAPEX, and Haley is on the chat, and she is one of them, and really very happy. And Orfa, there you are, Orfa, I see you down there. Wonderful, amazingly clever supply chain people who have committed to offering free mentorship, advice and guidance to our young professionals and students. So don't miss out on this opportunity. Click on the PDF document, have a look at all the different people. It is said that you can have 1 or 2 mentors, people offering you different advice. And so I just wanted to just highlight that again. Now I'm going to hand over to Kim, who is one of our new young professional and student members. And thank you, Kim, for this introduction. And over to you.
Hi, everyone. As you all know from our invite, our guest speaker for today's webinar is Dr. Belinda Ketel. Dr. Ketel is an organizational psychologist that has years of experience working with companies across different industries. She works with big corporations as well as small businesses. And having had the pleasure of working with her, I can say that Dr. Ketel really helps you and your team thrive and perform at your best. And when she's not doing all of this, Dr. Ketel enjoys relaxing with her family and watching Star Wars. She's a big Star Wars fan. So today she's presenting on a topic that she's passionate about. And before I hand over to Dr. Ketel, I'd just like to let everyone know that you're welcome to post your questions and comments on our chat, and we'll direct them to her during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So I know everyone's excited to get started. Welcome, Dr. Ketel.
Thank you, Kim. It sounds very official when you call me Dr. Ketel. I think we should keep that in order. It's Belinda to everybody. I'm very comfortable with that. I don't mind at all. And thank you for the introductions. I am super excited and have lots of energy for our just less than an hour together. And the topic that I am talking about today, which is around personalities and color personalities specifically, I am extremely passionate about. I could talk about it for hours and hours and not run out of words. So what we are going to do in the hour that we have together, and I'm conscious to leave some time if there's questions, is we really want to understand why on earth would Belinda bring this topic into this forum with young professionals and students in a supply chain kind of industry environment. So behavior, which we all use every day, consciously and not, affects all of our transactions and our interactions with other people, people that we know very well, people that know us very well, and especially people that don't know us yet. So we are human beings and we make good and bad assumptions 100 times a day by what we see or perceive or observe or notice or read in other people. And even if you are on an online event like this, where you're not necessarily seeing everybody else or your cameras are off, you pick up lots of nuances by just how people, interact, or how they ask, or how they email, or how they message, or how they ask their questions. So being young professionals, early in your career, new in your career, emerging into that space where you want to grow and stretch, and definitely as a student who is still transitioning into a professional role, being able to understand your own behavior is mission critical. We are so busy focusing on, completing our qualifications or applying for jobs or navigating our early careers, that we don't often have time for this kind of topic. In fact, I know many of my clients say to me, oh, that's like a soft skillsy thing, it's a luxury, it's an extra. I promise you by the end of our hour today, you'll realize that it is literally the oxygen that you need to breathe when you are navigating how to influence, how to persuade, how to convince, how to create perception, how to purposefully get people to draw assumptions, how to pitch and stage a particular argument. And I don't mean a fight, I mean a perspective, a point of view, how to read a room, how to go for an interview and not overdo things because you're a little bit nervous or you've got butterflies in your tummy, or how to not go into a meeting where there's more senior people than you and you haven't navigated those relationships yet, and to not do things that make you feel, I don't know, silly, or that you, weren't thinking straight when you were in those places. You really have to navigate behavior of self and to know the good, the bad, and the ugly about yourself and be totally okay with that, in order to be able to start reading the room and reading others that are around you. So when you want to, really figure out what your competitive advantage is as a person, as a resource, as an employee, as a team member, eventually as a manager or a leader in an organization or a group, behavior is a non-negotiable component of that. It's not the only thing you need to know. It's not the only thing you have to master, but it is certainly one of them. In fact, it's one of the most dominant factors that we find when relationships fail, or when projects fail, or when workflows are delayed or become too complex. There is usually a big chunk of behavioral misfit or behavioral noise that's happening in that environment. And all of these behaviors, especially of people that are in your careers or in your work environment, that are senior, that are leaders, that have power, that make decisions, you can't control them, but you have to find very functional, positive, proactive ways to be able to navigate that work environment for you to be successful in that work environment, no matter whether you like the person or not, no matter whether you think that environment is toxic or not, no matter whether you agree or not with the decisions that are being made. You have to be resilient enough and smart enough and savvy enough to read behavior, to understand behavior, and to use it to your advantage. And that's really what we get to talk about today. So I have a one particular model, which I'm talking about today, and it's called the color personality model. And I'm going to just show it on my next slide very quickly. The color personality model is one of many, many, many tools out there that talk about behavior and personalities. But I will tell you this, it is one of the simplest, easiest behavioral tools to understand in a very short space of time. And today, we only have an hour together, and I want you to be able to navigate a full 360 around behavior from a quickie, from a short, impactful pocket rocket kind of webinar. So that's why I chose this particular model, not because it's the only one or it's the bestest one or it's the most detailed one, but it is very practical and very digestible. All right. So the color personalities tool that I want to talk to you about today shows that behavior in general, in any environment, in a family, in a social setting, in a community, in a university class, in a work environment, is very broadly constructed or made up of personalities or behavioral preferences that fall into these four main color categories. You do get complications, you can get combinations, and you can have a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one, but those are complexities which go beyond what we're going to do today. So for today, what I want you to be able to think of as I teach this to you or share this with you and explain this with you is, number one question I have for you, you don't have to answer me personally, but keep it in the back of your mind. Which color are you? Which dominant color are you? All right, when I go through all of the details. The second question that I need you to think about is, which color are you not? There will be one of these four colors which you associate with the least, all right? And I'll tell you why that's particularly significant, is because whichever color that is, it becomes a bit of a behavioral blind spot for you. So it's an irritation. So whichever one of the colors that is, and you say, oh, Belinda, I'm definitely not that one. That is probably the place. If other people want to push your button, if they want to trigger you, if they want to try and manipulate in any way to get something out of you, they're going to go for the one where they know they get your reaction. So be very conscious of which one might not be you. It's just as important as the one that is dominantly you. And then I'll speak to some of the combinations that we can get. Now, I'm very aware that the SAPICS team will email out, after today's session or later in the week, the slides that I'm using today, and there are only 2 slides, so it's very short and sweet with this particular picture on. And I've also sent to them that they can distribute to all of you a very short, it's 2 pages long, it's got 5 little questions, 5 little rows where you score yourself, a personality assessment tool. So just absorb what we're doing today. And a lot of the detail in the words that I'm explaining to you are in that little document, and you score yourself up and it'll tell you sort of a little bit more scientifically, a little bit more, accurately where your balance lies across the score. So it's not a requirement to do that now or to do it while we're in the, before we do the webinar, but it might tweak your interest to do it afterwards and say, well, I wonder what I am. And even perhaps with other people that you work with or live with or socialize with, what they are. All right. So let's take a little look at my picture, at my model. So I particularly choose to put it in a circle because it's meaningful in terms of where the different colors fit and how we navigate them. So without going into any of the detail of all the colors yet, what I want to show you is that the vertical line in my picture moves from the top half, so like 12 o'clock, where the blue and the red are, which are both extremely task-focused behavioral preferences, task-focused personalities, both blue and red, where the bottom 2 at 6 o'clock, the green and the yellow, are what we call relational focus. That means that the task-focused personalities always, without fail, want to get something done first and connect with people second. So first, they want clarity on what must be done, what's the deadline, when is this going to happen, what detail do you need, in what format must it be done? And they almost fire at you a little bit like a like a machine gun, where the bottom 2 colors, the green and the yellow, have a relational focus. They cannot, I'm going to underline that again, cannot focus on the task until they are connected. So unless they connect with you, and I don't mean they have to hug you, or touch you, or, be with you in a room, but unless they're able to connect with you where I'm okay, you're okay, and we're understanding what our relation is in terms of this task or this project or this thing that we need to do, they first connect, and only second to that will they be able to get into the nuts and bolts and the details of who must do what when, or how must this thing be done, or what's the plan of action going to be. So when you put the top half of my picture in the same room as the bottom half of my picture, which you always get around any family dinner, around any group that has to do an assignment at university, around any group that's working in an organization, you literally get organized chaos. because we speak the same language, like we're all speaking English, but we're misunderstanding each other and we're getting frustrated with each other. The more the task-focused people in the meeting will put up their hands and ask questions around very specific details, the more the green and the yellow people in the room are going to avoid those answers or not take them seriously and ask questions about relation, accountability lines, communication lines, how this fits together, who's responsible for what. Okay, so that's the vertical line that I want you to understand. The horizontal line is pretty easy. I think most of us know these words. If you're on the left-hand side of the diagram, you're more introverted. And if you're on the right-hand side of the diagram, you're a little bit more extroverted. Now, I don't want to go into deep English definitions, but I just want to make sure, don't make any stereotypical assumptions about the word introvert and extrovert. Introverts are not shy and quiet, and extroverts are not just loud and all over the show. Those are stereotype kind of characteristics. The difference between an introvert and an extrovert is based on how they make decisions and how they process information. How they make decisions and how they process information. So an introvert, which is on our blue-green side, the left-hand side of the diagram, they first want to digest any new information slowly and thoroughly and robustly to their own level of satisfaction. They need to get their head around this thing. And only when they are kind of saturated with understanding and they feel there's not a lot of risk and they really have everything they need in order to move forward, will they then act or make a decision. So that's very opposite to what we have with extroverts. Extroverts like information simultaneously as to when they make decisions. So for extroverts, it's a bit of scrambled eggs. They don't first process the information and then move to action. They talk and make decisions at the same time, which means with an extrovert, while they're receiving information, they're making assumptions and making decisions and saying, I'll do this, or let's do that, or let's plan it this way. And then more information comes out and they go, oh, I didn't know that. Now let's do it in a different way. Now I understand. Let's change it to this and this and this. And then they get more information from somebody else that speaks and they go, oh, no, let's change again. So people can often get very frustrated when they are of one preference and people that are in the meeting or in the discussion or in the conversation or in the project with them are different. And this is the same. For those of you that are students that are in the audience, you will know this from any group project that you've been tasked to do. It's very frustrating. And if you're in an organization, I want to say it's even more frustrating because you can't pick and choose always who you have to work with. And it's not always even people in your team. It's the people across teams, multidimensional teams in your business environments, where you don't get to choose who represents that team, but you have to find a way to navigate. So remember my question when I started, I said, which color are you? And whichever color you are, there's no wrong color, there's no bad color or worse color. Whichever color you are, you have got to be able to master and be calm at knowing where you are on Belinda's color wheel and where the other people in your group or in your organization or that you're busy talking to or that you need something out of, where they are at. And this is the magic trick or tip that I will give you consistently throughout my whole talk. You that need something from somebody else or need somebody else to agree with something or go along with something or action something, you have to go to where they are on Belinda's color wheel. So if you are one color and they are a different color, you have to shift your behavior temporarily at the beginning of your negotiation or your project or your planning or your thinking, go to where their color is, a little bit like a chameleon, and behave or show some behaviors of a color that's similar to where they are at. So you say, like with like, I'm similar to you. So you speak in the same way, you slow down in the same way, you speed up in the same way, you go into detail in the same way, and it's exhausting. It literally flattens your battery because it's not your natural zone. But when you're able to do that, you open up the doors for influencing, persuading, convincing, and closing deals or decisions. Now, this is extremely important for any of you that are students, and certainly any of you that are navigating any career changes, because one of the most dramatic places where this plays out is a job interview. People can make the biggest assumptions from the slightest behaviors that you show. And it's not that you show wrong behaviors, it's just Some people will go into an interview and say, well, I am what I am. They're either going to like it or not. And then they just do themselves, and maybe that's a win or maybe it isn't. But when you're a little bit more insightful and a little bit more skillful, you go in with your own color, but moderately. Don't show all your flavors and all your colors and all your fireworks straight away. First, read the room, navigate the tone of voice, navigate the kind of people in the panel that are interviewing you, and adjust your behavior so that you show a little bit of this color and a little bit of that one. And you can, sort of spread out the characteristics, the colors that you can show until you're figuring out, okay, this is what they're loving, and give them more of that. All right. That's the art of really influencing and having an impact by understanding just the basics of behavior. You don't need a degree in psychology like me. So now I'm going to take you through this diagram, and I want to just briefly explain each of the colors to you. And to do that, I'm going to just move to my second slide, and this is the only other slide I'm going to show you today. Same colors, same dividing, the vertical and the horizontal. And what I want you to notice in this slide is that I've divided each of the colors into good and bad. And I know good and bad are such simple, cheesy words, but it's when any of you in your color zone are in a good space. And a good space doesn't just mean a good day or you've had your coffee. It means feeling very confident and very calm in behavior zone. You're in a good zone. Your energy is aligned. You're feeling like you're in control. Then the positive characteristics of that color show. When you are ratty and irritated and tired and you didn't have your morning coffee, you're going to show the cockroachy, and I know that sounds really bad, but the like yucky side to that personality, that behavior. And even though you're being true to your color, you're showing the more negative characteristics which people can pick up on in your behavior. And that's true for all four of the color zones. All right. So now I want to just literally walk you through the colors. So let's start with red, simply because she's at the top and on my right, and not because it's better or worse than any of the others. So if you look at the red box, that energy or that color personality is known as fiery red. So you can just imagine that, fiery red. So red energy is actually something that Claire shows a lot of when you meet her. And I've only spoken to her a few times and met her today. So fiery red energy is very engaging, very immediate, very in the moment, very action orientated, very delivery focused. Reds don't ever not deliver. I don't know if that's very good English or very bad English. Reds always deliver. Maybe I must put it in the positive. There is not an option in the Reds blood group to not complete a task, finish something, achieve it, and probably get 80% for it. So complete overachiever compliments are moving in the direction of the Reds. And I'm not saying the other colors don't complete tasks. It's just that with a red, you will pick it up even if you don't know the person at all. So Reds are very, very conscious of task and time. These are two very important points with a red: task and time. More so than any of the other personality behaviors, Reds focus very accurately on minutes and hours. I'm not saying they clock in and clock out. I'm saying they know their diary. They know what their day is like. They know how long something takes them. When they are messed around in terms of time, or people don't rock up on time, or they're late for something, it literally irritates them instantaneously. Reds, when you speak to them just in conversation, even if it's informal, like at a braai at somebody's house, they're very aware of how much time it takes to do something. So they will either ask or they tell, but they will literally know. If you're in a meeting with a red, they will say to you, so if we're going to do that, we need to put this on hold for a week because we're only going to get to it by next week, Tuesday. And other people aren't even looking at their calendars, but the red in their brain is already in the calendar, in the schedule, mapping out the project, like dominoes, getting everything together. So they are very structured, very organized, very in control, very in charge. They thrive in leadership positions. They don't always seek them out, but they usually land in them by default. Reds literally can't do, and I know this is going to sound really harsh perhaps to some of you that are associating with red, but Reds can't do slow, and they can't do stupid, and they don't do pathetic. And I don't mean that they're ugly to people or that it comes out of their mouths, but reds are fast-paced and move quickly and solve problems. So when there's somebody in their work environment that's a little bit like iffy or unsure, or says, well, I don't really know, or I haven't thought about it yet, the red will almost decide on their behalf, or the red will move past them and find someone else that they can work with, or the red will just do it themselves. So they don't slow down just because other people around them need time to catch up. And that's probably one of the biggest criticisms you have with reds is, wow, they're fast. And if you don't keep up pace with them, if you just don't connect with them within a day or two, they've already made 5 new decisions and they've moved in 5 new directions, and you're not at the same speed as what they are. So those are our fiery reds. Okay, let's move over to the blues. So our blues are still at the top half of Belinda's picture. They're also very cognitive, cerebral, task-focused, thinking-focused, and they're more introverted. So with the blues, you'll see that their name that we call them is cool blue, very chilled, very cool blue. There is none of the feistiness of the red in the blue, all right? The blues are cool as cucumbers. They pace themselves. They are never in a rush. There's no panic or anxiety or anxiousness around blues. If they are panicky or anxiety orientated, you don't see it for a long time, or unless you know the person really well, because they do that swanning thing where they are like calm on the top and maybe crazy under the water, panicking underneath, but very chilled and very calm and very serene and very in control and very detailed, very analytical. So blues love data. They love facts. They love information. They like detail. This is different to a red. A red does get into the detail and does get into information, but not to the same degree as a blue. A blue almost wants to know more than what's required for a particular task or project or thing that you have to do. Not just because they're a pain, but because they really fully absorb and soak themselves up into the particular thing. So blues ask a hell of a lot of questions. If you have anyone around you that is consistently asking questions, even if you find the questions annoying, they probably lie in the blue space. Blues uncover layers and layers and layers of things, and they'll often say, but why? Or can you explain? Or what was the reason? Or what was the context? Or do you want me to do it this way? Or do you want me to do it that way? So they really seek out facts and detail and confirmation of information as they navigate things. In fact, the bad side or the frustrating side of a blue is if they do not have enough information, and enough is relative, what's enough for me and enough for you is different. But if they don't have sufficient data on a particular thing, they will not move. They are stubborn like a donkey. They will wait and find and dig and pester and be suspicious if they need to, but they will not move. And it's something as simple as renewing your cell phone contract. A blue will not renew their cell phone contract over the phone with someone from Vodacom. They will listen to the person from Vodacom, but they will first research it and Google it, and then they'll go to the shopping mall, to the Vodacom shop, and they'll look at the different devices or compare the packages. And when they are sufficiently informed, which might be like a week later, then they will do the upgrade. Okay, then they will make the decision. So when you are navigating an interview, or when you are navigating group work, or when you are navigating a project meeting in the office, you are absolutely going to have reds and blues in the room somewhere. And reds, you will definitely see. Reds don't hide. I mean, they're not going to walk in and say, hey, I'm a red. But they take up space and they say hello when they walk in, and they bold with their energy. Blues are different. Blues are quiet. They'll slip in the room. You won't even notice them. They'll come with paperwork and detail and notes about something, and they've prepared their thinking, or they've asked questions beforehand. So blues don't even speak first. They often speak last or speak later. They wait to first hear what other people are saying. And then when they've almost collected enough ammunition, they will put their argument forward, or they'll make their suggestions, or they'll tell you why they're concerned about something or why they see something as a risk. So blues are extremely cognitive, very analytical, very process orientated. For a blue, it's not just about getting the task done. For a red, it's 100%, get the damn job done. For a blue, It's get it done correctly. Get it done right. You know, it's like paying your TV license. It's the right thing to do. Get it done right. So for a blue, and I'm going to put this out there, even if there is a deadline, like a deadline is 5 o'clock today on the 31st of March, if there isn't complete information or the blue hasn't had all the detail or there's too much risk in rushing it, the blue will literally move past the deadline and complete it the following day or as soon as possible after that. And if you want to freak out and stomp your feet and, you know, lose your cool about it, it doesn't upset the blue in any way. They are very chilled. The blue doesn't mind being disliked. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the blue wants to be disliked, but if a blue doesn't have to be popular or likable for them to feel that they're doing something thoroughly. They will feel better about themselves having missed a deadline and done something 100% than having rushed to the deadline and having done 50 or 60%, which is totally opposite to the reds. The reds will absolutely create energy and movement, and they will charge like a bull with everyone in their team to meet that deadline. Okay. So those are the blues and the reds, and they are both task focused. They're both cerebral, they're both thinking, they're both intellectual, and there's just the difference between the extroversion and the introversion. Okay, now I'm going to drop to the bottom half of my picture, and we're going to talk about the greens and the yellows. So let's go down to the greens. The greens are on the same side as the blues. The greens are introverted, so reflective, thoughtful, digest first, act second, look for connections, want to feel safe. Our greens are called earth greens. So they're very, I don't mean they always want to be in nature, but they're very grounded. They're very people orientated. They're very, what you see is what you get. They're very genuine as people. They are also very soft. They are very caring. They are very empathetic. In fact, they get hurt far too quickly. And in difficult environments, greens will be the first color that feels a little bit exploited or a little bit taken advantage of in an environment, because they are quiet and they are literally like little worker bees. That's the best way I can explain them. They just want to please people. They want to deliver. They want to do what's asked of them. They're not seeking out loudness. They're not seeking out recognition. They don't necessarily want to be the leader of the pack. They don't want to be the cherry on the cake for anything. They are very happy to operate in the background. They are very happy to be part of a team. And the most important thing with the green is that they feel safe and secure. And I don't mean like burglar bars or an alarm in the building. I mean safe in their relationship. Their boss or their team leader or their lecturer or their senior must make them feel that I'm okay and you're okay. I've got your back. I'm going to protect you if something goes on here. Or if you just deliver this, you'll be absolutely fine. As soon as a green in any environment feels a little bit exploited, a little bit unsafe, a little bit pushed aside, a little bit vulnerable, they literally go into their shell like a tortoise. So if you think of a green, maybe think of a tortoise. They literally disappear inside, and it takes them a long time to even creep out of their little tortoise shell and put their head out to come and say hello. You really have to kind of coax them out. They will disconnect or not trust very, very quickly in an environment. But in a positive environment where they do feel protected and they do feel that their team has their back and that their contribution is appreciated, they are the most willing person to jump through hoops, do gymnastics, flick flacks, whatever you need, they will do, even if it's not in their job description, to get something done. So very, very willing, very engaged, very positive, very proactive in those environments. So when we often have to work with greens in a work environment or in a university group task or a camping trip with friends or family, and you have greens in that kind of space, when they are positively connected, they're able to do their tasks very easily and very enthusiastically. Where they feel not positively connected, a little bit vulnerable, a little bit separated, a little bit disconnected, they perceive risk in the environment where they have to do things. They literally go quiet and they disappear under the radar. Like they're there, but they're not there. You wouldn't even notice them there for the whole day. They're that invisible. And that invisibility is what gives them protection and strength in a particular environment. So when you work with greens, and when you have greens, for example, in your interview panel, so if you have greens that is a boss of yours, you will find that they try to protect, they try to make you feel comfortable, they try to pick up if there's anything worrying you. They will say, have a sip of water or just take a few minutes. They're very accommodating and want you to feel safe so that you can put your best foot forward. There's not a nasty bone in a green, okay? They're very, very nicey, nice with sprinkles on top. Let's move to the yellows, and I'm watching our time. So the yellows is where I live, and I'll say that at my own expense. I live on the red-yellow side of the diagram. And yellows are also relational, so they want to connect with people before they're able to complete a task. The difference to the greens is that they are extroverted. So they change their mind a lot, they move very quickly between things, they focus on different things at the same time, they're all over the show. So when you think of a yellow, the name that they call the yellows here is called sunshine yellow. So sunshine is just like a ball of happiness, like a tin of Red Bull that you're spraying out in the air. So when you think of yellows, they are very, very likable. Like it is hard, it is really difficult to not like a yellow. You almost would have to look for reasons to not like a yellow. They will go in any environment. There will even be someone that sits next to you on the bus, and they will start a conversation or look approachable and make everyone around them feel comfortable. So it's really hard to manage a yellow. It's hard to discipline a yellow. It's hard to give negative performance feedback to a yellow, because they're really nice people and their intentions are good. The frustrations that we often have with yellows is that, and I speak for myself, is that we get involved and distracted by too many exciting things. So at work, we like to be involved in multiple committees and lots of projects. And if somebody mentions something, we're like, yes, we also want to be involved in that. Or if we're at university, we're busy with our university work, but we're also socializing, and we're also in sports teams, and we're also on committees, and we also attend webinars. And before you know it, the yellow is too thinly spread. They've got too many things on their hook, and they don't complete any one thing properly. So they're great at initiating, really bad at following through. Great with new innovative ideas, really bad at maintaining them. Great with putting energy into a team and into a problem solving session or a brainstorming session, really bad at writing up the report, really bad at following it through. They almost get lazy for those components because it's not interesting enough or it's not exciting enough, and they move on to something else. So that's a description of what you'll see in the yellows when they're a little bit frustrating to live with or to work with or to have in your teams, because they're nice socially. I mean, you always want to invite a yellow to your braai, or you always want to invite a yellow to your staff party or to your event. They fill it up with lots of energy and good noise and good feedback, but they are quite high maintenance to manage. It's tricky to get, if you think at university, if you're working on a project for one of your semester subjects and you've got one or two yellows in the group, it's like herding cats. They say they'll do something and then they don't do the thing. And then you follow up with them and say, oh, I forgot, I'll get it for you now. And next time you talk to them, they haven't done it again. So they mean well, but they don't follow through. What they do very well is they connect people. They connect thoughts, they connect ideas, and they create energy. So when you want to unblock things, or when you want to stabilize things, or when you want to facilitate things, or when you want to get things moving from a stuck position to a movable position, you need to introduce yellow energy into that environment. So just like all of the colors have got good and bad elements, the yellow can be really, really useful to get things moving and to get people that were previously not speaking to each other to work together, or to get two difficult components joined into one, or to merge things. So they're really good mediators and facilitators and negotiators and influencers. It's very seldom that people will say no to a yellow, because they're very good with their words. They're very smooth with how they explain things or say things. And that's their strength. So you've got to really, really utilize that. Okay. So that was a little, very quick meander through all of Belinda's colors on the color wheel, and you can see out with the words, you know, kind of the good and the bad, or the frustrating part and the real strengths are. What I want to remind you of is that you don't have to remember all the words that I've said today. It will come to you in the slides. It will come to you with a little questionnaire that you can fill in. But what I really want you to remember is, what color are you and where do you fit? And which color are you mostly not? Which is your no-go zone? It's like, oh, Belinda, that behavior irritates the hell out of me, or that behavior I really don't like, or that behavior I don't. So that you understand the pulling and the pushing within your own behavioral profile. So where you are, like I've told you, I live in the red and the yellow side. My red and yellow scores are almost equal. So I move, or I vacillate on that side of this particular diagram. I could be great at you know, working with you or at delivering things or projects. But if you catch me on a bad day, or if my energy is low, or if I'm upset about something else that's going on, or I'm distracted, you're going to find a really inflexible, sometimes a little bitey comments, a bit of sarcasm, and someone who doesn't focus on the details. And that's awful, you know, to have somebody that you're working with. So you must really realize that each one of us has got the good and the bad. You don't only have the good. And you have to learn, I think, over years of panel beating, of the university of hard knocks in life, especially when you enter a work environment, how to balance showing the good characteristics versus the not such good characteristics. How do you just tone down when you know you're feeling a little bit tired or a little bit worn out or not in your best zone? How do you just go under the radar screen for a while instead of somebody poking you and you bite, or you disappear, or you don't deliver, or you cause upset in that kind of environment? The last area that I really want to explain to you is the combinations. Now, any one of you, obviously, if you score the questionnaire, you'll see that some of your scores can be closer. And any one of you can be a combination of any of these colors. There's no rule that it has to be the one next to you. So you could be a combination like I am, with red and yellow, which are next to each other, like blue and red are next to each other, or like green and blue are next to each other. So if on Belinda's picture, your one or two dominant colors are neighbors, like they literally touch each other on my picture, you have what we call a normal behavioral profile. Normal is good. You want normal, okay? When I mean by normal is that, like with my colors, I'm a red and a yellow. When I move from yellow to red, or from red to yellow, it doesn't scare anybody terribly, because both of my colors are still in the extroverted space. So I change slightly to somebody from the outside, but they won't really pick it up because there's a big dose of similarity. The same if you were a blue-red. If you blue and red, the thing that you have that's the same in both colors is your task focus, your thinking analytical mind. So you could move between red and blue and red and red and blue, and it won't scare anybody out there. They won't jolt and think, goodness, does she have, you know, multiple personality? Because the thing that holds it together is that task focus, that thinking the focus that you have. Now we get complicated or more complex profiles. They're not called abnormal profiles. So normal and abnormal, you get normal profiles, and then we get complex profiles. Complex profiles are the diagonals. So if you have a red-green combination as your top two scoring colors, so they're the most dominant colors in your profile, or the other one is blue and yellow, you have what we call a complex profile. What that means is, when you shift from your one dominant color, your behavior, to your other dominant color or behavior, it confuses the living daylights out of people that are sitting in that meeting with you, or that are working with you, or that are in the lift club with you, or that are at varsity with you, because you are literally changing on the diagonals, both axes. You're changing from either task to relational, so thinking to feeling, and you're changing from introvert to extrovert. So when you shift, and I have a very good friend of mine that's a blue-yellow, so we connect on the yellow because I've got yellow and she's got yellow, and we're great when we're on the yellow together. But when she moves into blue, it's the opposite of everything that we usually connect on. So it's quite an adjustment when she shifts into that space. So the question you might be asking in the back of your mind is, what would make me shift? What would make me shift from the one color to the other? It's not like I just had a, shot of tequila or I took medication. It's not little things like that. The triggers which shift you from your dominant color to your second dominant color, or from one color to the other, are any elements in the environment that you are working in or talking in or socializing in that you perceive as risky. So if anything shoots up in your space and you think, oh, I don't like that, I'm uncomfortable with that, that feels risky. I don't feel completely safe, or I don't feel like I know enough, or I think there's something there that I'm not aware of. In any way, you will shift to a different color to navigate that same situation or that same context with other lenses. So most of us as adults vacillate between our two dominant colors. We move between them easily within an hour, within a couple of hours, within a workday. That's where we kind of fit. And our lowest scoring color, the one where I said to you, that's totally not me, Belinda. I get irritated when I even read those words on the screen. That is what we call your behavioral blind spot, because people that show that behavior, or people that try to interact with us with that behavior of our lowest scoring one, we immediately kind of experience it as negative or as not what we're looking for. I don't want to connect with that. So the scoring that you have, or the range that you have within your behaviors, is really, really significant for you to know and for you to be okay with it. You don't have to change it. There's nothing bad. It's just know what you are and be totally jiggy with that. Be really comfortable and okay with that. And teach yourself over time how to be able to move or navigate between the colors. So even though I'm a yellow or a red, I can absolutely show behavior that's blue-like, or I can absolutely show behavior that's green-like. I just have to concentrate on it, and it drains my battery a little bit, and I have to do it purposefully. It's not just going to happen automatically, but I can move into that space to connect with somebody that's important enough for me to do that, so that I can get what I need out of that conversation, or out of that transaction, or out of that context. And then I can shift back to my natural colors again. It's just a temporary shift and back, temporary shift and back. So it's literally like going to gym for behavior. Okay. And that, ladies and gents, is where I'm going to stop for today. And I'm going to leave the last few minutes that we have, I think it's just about 10, for any questions that you might have. And I'm going to try and check on the chat function. I don't know if any of you were watching. I noticed there were a couple of them there. Oh, and I see you added the questionnaire. Thank you, whoever did that. I see it's there in the chat function. Okay, so are there any questions that you have?
Okay, hi, Dr. Belinda.
Hi
Can you
there.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I have a question. So I did the questionnaire, right? And I scored high on blue and low on yellow. So I would describe myself as someone who's quiet and mostly reserved, right? But the problem with that, or the problem that I perceive, is that I find I kind of struggle with networking. So as a psychologist, I'm sure you know that some introverts prefer their own company, or to engage in one-to-one conversations rather than in a group or social events. So I guess my question is, what is the best piece of advice could you give to an introvert in what some of us perceive as a mostly extroverted world, where one may be expected to be sociable, to enjoy networking, or even being in the spotlight in order to build a successful career? Because as they say, it's not just about what you know, but also who you know can play an important role. So yeah, that's my
Very good question. I was waiting in anticipation for what my question is going to be. Okay, let me give you a good answer. It's an absolutely typical scenario for any blue or green, because you're introverted, to not love being at big, loud, social events where you're supposed to be handing out your business card and saying cheers to, lots of people. So the way that introverts, blues or greens, have to try and navigate very draining social events like conferences, like, you know, sort of social events and get-togethers, is through these three sort of strategies. The first strategy is don't go to the event alone. Go with one or two other people, even if they are not introverts, even if they're also extroverts, that are part of your little clique. So you go like a little pack, like a herd. The reason is because when you're an introvert and you go with one other person or two other people, you have a group that doesn't make you feel like you're out. Because when you're hanging around in the room or sitting around at the restaurant, you don't feel out because you have your gang. So you seem more approachable and you seem more relaxed, but actually your group protects you a little. It's like a buffer, like a shock absorber between you and the rest of the loud room. So your other partners, and if you're clever, you'll choose one of them that's a little bit more extroverted and one of them that's a little bit more introverted. Pick wisely. Don't just pick who you like, pick who's going to suit your purpose. Because the others will do networking and talk to people, and you can be a little bit in the shadow, a little bit near them. If you go closer, they introduce you. If you don't go closer, they don't have to introduce you. So don't go alone. Try and take one or two others with you. And even if it's an online event, have another colleague of yours that's also online with you, even though you're both sitting at home, but you can chat with each other or WhatsApp each other while you're in the event. So it makes it easier for you when when you're trying to connect to others. Another suggestion for introverts is that you understand that these events are draining. So you have to do an activity before the event. Let's say the event starts at 3 o'clock, like ours did today. For 20 minutes or half an hour at some stage since after lunch, you need to do an activity that completely charges your battery. So whether it's being alone, whether it's reading a book, whether it's working on your own, whether it's putting earphones on and listening to music while you're working. So your battery is maximum, like charging your cell phone, 100% when you go to the event. Then while you're at the event, it's going to go down, 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 down until you have almost no battery left, and then you exit the event. But you have more than enough to last you, while you are there. Okay. And then the third and the final answer, and I know it's a long one, the third and final answer I want to give you is that when you are at these events, and even if you are alone, do your networking in bursts. Don't do it all the time if you're there for a whole hour every minute. Disappear, have a drink, stand on the side, and then say, okay, I've had 10 minutes on my own. Now I'm going in to make a conversation, and you do it for 5 minutes. Then you exit the conversation and you walk outside. You pretend you want to go and have a smoke or go to the toilet, and you recharge your batteries, and then you give yourself 10 minutes, and then you go back in again. Don't try and hang out in that extroverted space for so long, because it's going to make you dislike being at that kind of event, which reflects negatively on the behavior that people pick up about you. It's almost like they pick up that you're not really wanting to be there, or you're not really wanting to have the conversation. Okay, let's have a look. Are there other... Pleasure. Are there other questions?
Dr. Belinda, we have a question from Zodwa. She has a hand up.
Oh, Zodwa, yes. Sorry, I didn't see. Ask away.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Belinda. Thank you so much for such insightful information. I was wondering, do you do one-on-one coaching sessions? And if yes, how do I get a hold of you?
I get to do a commercial break. Kim, that's great. I do. A lot of the work that I do is coaching. Much of it is related to organizations, but the easiest answer is just go and look on my website. It was on the invitation that they sent out. It's drbelindaketel.com. You can contact me there. And thank you for asking, Zodwa. That was very kind.
All right. Thank you so much.
We have a lot of great comments here on the chat. We do have another question that was posted by Marcy. She wants to know, if you identify with a red, can you change to a blue? Should we try to change our personalities to be better in our workspaces? Or is this merely identifying how to deal with people based on the characteristics?
Great question, Marcy. Thank you, Kim. I was just paging through that myself. You never, ever, 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 ever want to change your personality. Don't do that. You can try your hardest. It'll just make you confused, like a chameleon on a Smartie box. It's 100% the second part of what your comment or question was, Marcy. You don't change who you are. You learn how to adapt to the others that are there. So if I am a red and you are a blue and I need to connect with you or work with you well, I just have to learn how to tone down some of the redness and just dangle some bait that looks a little blue to make you come closer and want to cooperate with me. And once we're cooperating, I can go back to being my normal color. I don't have to stay in that other space. It's about going to fetch the other person, stretching, creating an open channel so that you can influence and work and persuade and obtain what you need as a resource out of that situation or meeting or project, and then bouncing back into your natural personality space. Your personality is never wrong. You just have to learn how to moderate it. It's like turning the volume up and down. Okay. Kim, you want to help me? Are there any more? Any other questions? I'm just trying to look.
I don't see any other questions on the group,
Okay. Yes, I was
but
just checking on the
lots of
chat.
comments.
Yes, lots of comments. And they're saying, where's the questionnaire? They want to fill it in immediately, which is great. Fill it in. There we go. And thank you. Claire put my website up, Chameleon on a smarty box. Okay, well then we've got a few minutes to spare. If there are any questions or any comments from anyone else, please let me know.
Belinda, I see somebody asked, could you please maybe suggest a list of additional resources we could use to read up on further? Just wondered, somebody had that question, like perhaps a suggested website that we can maybe have a look at as well.
Absolutely. I love reading, and I'm a collector of articles and not just books. So yes, I think what probably will be easiest is if I just compile that on an email and send it to you guys, and then you can distribute it with the slides and things after the session today. No problem at all.
That would be amazing.
I'm writing it down because I'm a yellow, so I can remember.
Thank you very much. That would be great, I think, for everybody.
Kolofelo, any more questions, comments? Are we good? Are you going to wrap up for us?
Yeah, I'll wrap up. I don't see anything else. I guess they're still digesting all the information. Oh, Cindy.
Kolofelo, just the one comment that I really love, it was from Yandiswa, and she says, I can literally plot the office staff in this. So when you put up the grid.
She's sitting in the webinar going, that one's a yellow and that one's a green and that one's a blue. That's great. That means it's practical. You can literally see them even without filling in the tool. Perfect.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed, just to add to that, I really enjoyed the questionnaire. You're like really insightful. So great job on that one.
And it's not a difficult one to complete. It's very simple. Yeah. This isn't the full questionnaire. The full questionnaire has got 260 questions. But this is what we use. I call it the quickie. I don't think I'm allowed to say that word. But this is the kind of questionnaire we use in training sessions and in coaching sessions where you don't want to have a 2-hour-long analysis. You just want enough to get a good idea of where do I fit on the map, and then you can work with those results.
Oh, somebody has their hand up.
There we go. Stum group.
Hi, Belinda. This is maybe a bit of a weird question, but in the work environment that I'm in, we've had recently a lot of accusations of workplace bullying. Is that the whole thing of bullying very prominent, I might call it, in any particular of those color groups?
Oh, I know where you're going with that question. Good question. So usually, and this is so stereotypical, usually people associate the reds with bullies. But actually what research tells us is not necessarily true. All 4 color zones have different ways to bully, and I will answer you very quickly on them because I know we're running out of minutes. Reds bully by forcing the agenda and the timelines that they want. So they're inflexible, sometimes in very passive aggressive ways, but they're inflexible on things. So they pretend they're consulting, but they don't really. So that's how you'll feel the bullying from a red. Blues bully by doing nothing. They go underground. They don't answer your email. They don't respond. They sit in the meeting. They're dead quiet. If you ask them if they have an opinion, they go, And what they're doing is very passive aggressive blocking. So they're not giving you a suggestion. They're not going to roll this, stone out of your way. They almost want you to fail. They like set you up and say, told you so. Greens, who are not ugly in any way, they bully by becoming very, indecisive. So somebody will say to them, can you do this for me? And then somebody else will say, can you do that for me? And they go, yes, yes, yes. And in the end, they don't do anything for anyone because they're a little bit scared, like a deer in the headlights. So it's not bullying in an aggressive way, but it's very much not being firm and clear on what they're able to do and not. And they end up causing problems or mistakes or delays in projects. And then they stand back and say, it wasn't me, it's the project manager, or it wasn't me, I'm not accountable. And that way is very subversive kind of bullying. And the yellows do it with the biggest smile on their faces, like you don't even see it coming. So when you want to see the queen of passive aggressiveness, you look at your yellows. They will smile at you in the meeting and even agree with you. And behind your back, they will not do it, or they'll give negative feedback to others. So there's some particularly toxic traits. And I've got a great article, I'll add it to the list that Claire asked me for, around the toxicness of these personalities within an organizational culture. And it's the culture within an organization that allows this kind of behavior. And when the behavior persists consistently, that's when it forms into something which is called bullying. When it just happens once or twice, it isn't necessarily bullying. Okay, but you do find that it is prominent, and there's a lot of good research on it as well, on bullying in the workplace.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, seems our time has run up. In closing, I would like to thank Claire, Cindy, and the Suffix team for arranging this event, as well as Kim for her wonderful introduction. I would also like to thank Belinda for a very thoughtful presentation. I'm sure we've all gained a lot of valuable insight. I know I did. And just a reminder, please be sure to check out our mentorship program on the SAPEX website under the Young Professionals portal. As Claire said, it's a new initiative SAPEX launched last year as part of its youth development program, which is specifically aimed at addressing the needs of young and upcoming professionals in the field. I would also like to encourage you to also visit the SAPEX YouTube channel and see some of the previous webinars we've had, particularly the mini mentorship / informal coffee chat that we had, which was also very insightful. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this webinar, and I hope you all have a blessed week. Claire, do you have anything to add? You muted.
Can't click it. Thank you, Colafelo. That was great. We're just trying to shove so much information into everybody right now. But thank you for wrapping that up so elegantly, my darling.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye from my side. It was lovely to meet you all and to be with you.
Thanks, Belinda.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much. That was brilliant.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Thanks, Hayley.